Hi, my dear friends. How are you?
Hi, fine, and you?
I'm fine. What about you, dear?
Doing great. It's actually windy and rainy and cold in South Texas, so it's nice.
Oh, I miss those days. It's very hot. It's those days have been very hot here in Brazil, right,
Mhm.
Chris?
Yes, a little bit.
Yes, I miss the colder days. Not that cold because my state can get very, very, very cold. So we're here for the third study of the book, The Messengers. We've reached the middle of the study. We're very happy, and we have loads of interesting things to talk about today. So before we start, our beloved friend Nora will make some prayer for us, and after that, we're gonna get going because we have loads of interesting things to talk about.
Great. All right, let us enter that vibration. Dear Mother, Father God, thank you for this opportunity as we're gathered here this night on this lovely Saturday, whether it be cold or warm. We are here. We ask for guidance. We ask for drops of light as we are studying together, and that we um, understand more and more of this precious message. We thank you so much for this opportunity and for those around us as well, incarnate, discarnate, that they can pick up beautiful vibrations. With that, let's say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. So be it. That we begin.
Thanks, dear, so much. So we are in chapter 27, which is called The Slenderer. This is a very interesting chapter because we've seen this character before, and we're going to talk about him in another perspective today. To explain the context in which we are, we've stopped in chapter 26, which is called Listening to the Workers. Nora explained this topic for us last week in a beautiful way. And in this chapter 26, we watched Alfredo advising Alonso about visiting his family. We were in that scenario, or not. He were actually giving him some advices. And Alonso realized that at that moment, the best thing was that loneliness, that loneliness in which he was. He was feeling lonely, but seeing his family in that time was not what God had for him in this past perspective. And he decided to leave this visit for another time. And then we finished chapter 26 in this context of this conversation. They were giving advices to the workers. And after that, we enter chapter 27, which is called The Slenderer. Um, while Alfredo continued giving advices to the servants there in that context, Aniceto called André Luis and Vicente to an isolated building, and they went to some separate chambers. And they opened a door of one of those chambers, and they saw a man who looked very angry. Um, he had loads of signs of madness, and when they opened the door, he started screaming. Andrea Luis brings loads of details, so it's very nice reading this chapter and all the chapters. And here we have a very, very interesting lesson because Andrea Luis told us that when Aniceto opened the door and they saw that man angry, screaming, Aniceto didn't do anything. He just said with a very calm and peaceful way, "How are you, Paulo?" So we have a very interesting lesson here in terms of emanating fluids because Andrea Luis says that um, he left Aniceto, he noticed that Aniceto's words emitted a certain magnetic fluid that immediately caused a profound change in the patient. So we have here this in this few steps that we're going through with these chapters, and we're gonna learn more about that. That there are loads of ways of manipulating the fluids, of manipulating those energies that we're talking about in terms of healing and constructing another thing, a better thing. And at that, Aniceto touched Paulo's shoulder. And again, the sick man, Paulo is this man's name, and he asked if he was fine. And Andrea Luis says that when Aniceto made this first contact face to face and skin to skin with Paulo, and Andrea Luis tells us that the patient manifested a more lucid reasoning. This is very beautiful because we're seeing another way here. First, we saw this voice, this tone of voice, this calm tone of voice emanating a certain fluid. And here we see him, Aniceto, touching the sick man who was angry and maybe a little mad. And this touch doing something very powerful. And he said he was getting better, thank God. Aniceto asked Andrea Luis to use his gift of vision, and we saw in the first chapters that he had his sight improved by the magnetic passes. And he says that Andrea Luis should use his vision with great care about Paulo. And Andrea Luis started to see a black cloud over Paulo's head that started to draw bad figures. And Andrea Luis saw men chasing Paulo, women desperate chasing Paulo. But suddenly, Andrea Luis got very scared and surprised because he saw Ismalia and Alfredo in those clowns. And he was like, what is going on here? Because I can't understand what this sad, lonely, weird man has to do with those great people that I have just met. And then Aniceto told that man, that sufferer, was Ismalia persecutor. That Paulo was the man who had ruined their marriage. And as we've seen, Ismalia and Alfredo, they were very happy until this man that we know now, who is named Paulo, got in the middle of their relationship and destroyed everything. That amount of people that Andrea Luis saw was because Paulo had attacked many, many families. Aniceto explains to them that the criminal can never escape true universal justice because he carries the crime he has committed wherever he goes. And he also says that the real landscape of the spirit is that of the inner field. We live, in fact, with the most intimate creations of our soul. To elucidate this beautiful lesson, Aniceto brings the beautiful example of Jesus, saying that we still see Jesus often crucified, hanging on the cross, martyred by our mistakes, scourged by our whips, because our inner visions compels us to do so. He says that the master's condemnation was a collective crime, and that crime will be with us until the day we clothe ourselves in the divine light of redemption. He brings us this beautiful, beautiful lesson. And Aniceto goes further, explaining that it was Alfredo himself who took Paulo to the help post to take care of him, that aid station that we've talked about. And he says, and this is beautiful to see the amount of love of the Spirit, he says that Amalia herself was preparing Paulo's new incarnation on earth so that when he started regaining his lucidity, he would not feel humiliated by being helped by them. So he would incarnate soon. This is very, very beautiful. Ismalia had asked another woman who was also slandered by Paulo to receive him as her son, and she accepted. Soon he would return. And that's how this chapter 27 finishes. Do you guys want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Well, I mean, real quickly, just,
Hmm.
Jesus says, to love our enemies, and I think this is a great example of how Ismalia, I mean, she went beyond, because if we read about it, we just have to have good intentions with that phrase, but she goes beyond and is very participant in the whole process. And that right there is, wow, it's something for us to
Yes.
look forward to, little by little. I know they said here, this beautiful phrase, um, if he wanted it, so we can change it if we want it. If he wanted it, sought it, and nourished it, he got it, right? So that nourishing all that love and seeking all that, that's absolutely beautiful.
Yes, it's very beautiful. Seeing the spirit at that level, it's a really great lesson for we as spirits, for our spirits. And then we enter chapter 28, which is called social life. And this chapter is um, a little faster. We can go through it a little faster. In this chapter, Alfredo and Ismalia receive a visit from a very nice family. Then Anicero explained that Basilar, that's his name, the chief of the family, um, was at the head of groups of assistance to those incarnated on Earth. That's what he worked with. And Basilar comments a little about the difficulties that we as incarnates put against the missions we came to fulfill. And this is very interesting. And I brought a thing that he told us. Young people say they're too young to cultivate spirituality. The elderly claim to be useless at the service. Married people complain about the family. Singles complain about not having a family. Sick people say they just can't. And those who are happy say they just don't need to. Rare incarnates manage to live without contradiction. So, in this chapter, Barcelona has this beautiful work with incarnate human beings. He brings us this perspective that we are always creating and putting obstacles when it comes to living our mission, living what we came here to do. This chapter is essentially about this. Do you guys wanna say something, or can I go? And then we enter chapter
Go ahead.
29, okay, which is called Interesting News. In this chapter, we see Andrea Luis talking to Cecilia, one of Barcelar's daughter, and Aldonina, his niece. Cecilia told them that she was working hard to have the merit of being able to visit Nosolar. To which Vicente said, "Wow, we need do you need to do so much to visit Nosolar?" And he got very surprised because as being a member and as a citizen of Nosolar, he didn't know that Nosolar was such a great place to live. And she said he wasn't aware of the brilliance of the current position he was in, and that living in Nosolar was a great blessing, as we've seen. And she told him that in Nosolar there were many suffering spirits, but that in this other colony that we've learned about, which is called Campo da Paz, in which this family worked, there were many obsessing spirits, and that this difference of the type of spirits made a huge difference when it comes to being a happy or a happier place. And she said, it is easier to remedy what is groaning than to attend to the rebel. This is a very, very interesting lesson because we see that this colony called Kempel de Paz, this sphere, and that is much closer to the crust of the earth. They have spirits that haven't yet realized that they need to perceive and to be in the light. So their situation is much, much tougher. And then she goes on and she explains that in the rectification chambers where Andrea Luis worked, the wounds were already exposed, but the field of peace, this Campo de Paz, and that's what it would be translated as, close to the earth and on earth, had many, many materialistic people. And she brings us this lesson and she asks him, how many materialists dress up as philosophers? How many demons with the cape of saints? How much bad faith to pretend generosity and good intentions? The influence of incarnated humanity at our service, this is her talking, at our service is powerful and inevitable. And it makes it much more difficult. And in that, Andrea Luis, and he asks if Cecilia had many programs for her future, to which she replied, saying yes. But she says to him that she was still awaiting the arrival of someone who was still on Earth. Andrea Luis, always very curious. And then we finish this chapter. Do you guys wanna say something? Oh, can I? Okay. And then we
No,
enter
no.
chapter 30. We enter chapter 30 called Friendly Conversation. In this chapter, they begin by commenting on the marriage of a couple known by the girls. And they comment on the surprise they had to discover that there were marriages and unions also on the spiritual plane. They got very surprised when they discovered that. And this girl called Aldonina says that to achieve such a blessing of getting married in the spiritual plane, which, and we can see if it's a happy occasion on earth, we can imagine what it means on the spiritual plane. And she says to achieve this happiness of marriage on the spiritual plane, it is necessary to have loved a lot on earth, moving the noble impulses of the spirit. And she finishes this chapter bringing us a beautiful lesson. She says that to get married in the spiritual plan, in the spiritual realm, it is necessary to have loved while on earth with the soul. This is beautiful. And those couples, those who have loved with the soul, they will have the merit and the license to get married in the spirituality. And with this, we finish chapter 30. Do you guys want to comment?
It was
No,
just
no.
beautiful. There's still hope.
Beautiful.
Good joke.
There's much hope for
Nice one.
all of us single people.
There you go. You got it, huh?
Okay, go ahead, bro.
Go ahead. Chapter 31. Sis at Orm. Receive friends from nearby colony. Often invite them to the music hall. A large room shining soft blue light. Andrea tells musicians were girls on the earth's surface, and music touched the souls. 8 boys and girls, 50 of them, play string instruments while the others sing lovely, and Andrea had never heard anything like that. The time all of sang on 6 or 8. It's gondolier shadow in Jump. That song.
It's a little stuck, right? Is it stuck for you too, Nora?
Yeah, I can't hear. He
Yes,
turned.
yes, he turned the camera.
You're doing
Um,
it. But
yes, bro. I think. Can you hear us now? Can you hear us? Can you hear me? I think his microphone is closed. Is your microphone closed?
yeah, we somebody in the audience I also can't hear. The book is called The Messengers. Oops. I have notes everywhere. That's the one. I don't know
Yes.
the English version.
I think that Chris' internet is not helping.
Hey, Chris.
Hi, bro. Have you come
Connect
back?
to us to this vibration.
Yes.
Please.
Keep here with us. I think that it would be better for him
Yeah,
to leave and come back. Maybe.
we'll wait for him. He's frozen on my end.
Yes, he's frozen here too. Um, Let me try to talk to him
Okay.
here. On our WhatsApp group.
Well, he froze, but in a very nice profile. I
Yes, yes, a great
yeah.
profile.
Are you guys in
Reese.
the US? So I'm in
Okay,
Texas, in Rome.
I'm in Brazil in a state called Mato Grosso do Sul, and in a city that could be with which. So sorry, he's here again. Add to stream. He's back. Okay, hi,
Back
bro.
to the game.
Okay,
Sorry.
much better, much better. I think it would be good if you restart the whole chapter because we couldn't hear you.
But I think Chris is
Okay,
also in Brazil,
let's.
right?
Yes, Chris is in
Okay.
Brazil too. I'm in Mato Grosso do Sul and he's in Minas
USA.
Gerais, the same state as Chico Xavier.
Oh,
Yeah,
special.
the same.
Very
Yes.
So
special.
let's start the chapter 31. Cecilia at Oregon receive friends for the nearby colony, and Alfredo invite them to the music hall. A large room shines soft blue lights. Andrea tells us that children musician was performing together a large organ, so different those the on Earth's surface, and the music in that music touched the souls. 80 boys and girls, and 50 of them playing string instruments, while the others 30 sing lovely, and Andrea had never heard anything like that on Earth. Andrea describes it's so very interesting. Uh, Andrea described that the musical style was a barcarola that comes from the Italian small boat style sung by Venetian gondoliers in the rhythm 6/8, reminiscent of the gondolier's pedal, when they push and sing. And when the children finish, Ismaila asked Cecilia to play something. Cecilia starts playing Sebastian Bach Toccata in D minor. This part is also very interesting because there is a great misunderstood about the song, but because it's very used in the B movies soundtrack, however, this song is an amazing sound healing technology in order to clean their mind field, to open mind to receive new possibilities before the another presentation. Uh, when bar sustain chords with too many notes at the same time, it's a powerful mind feel cleaner. When you when you listen to this music, you can see better. After Ismaila asks Cecilia to play a song for the heart, When Cecilia starts playing, Andrea tells us that her beautiful face is changed for completely, reflecting the different light coming from higher place. Andrea tried to recall the words of the wonderful song, but would it be possible to remind all he has remembered? It just just remember just a little bit, but you didn't have enough time to repeat all the beautiful lyrics here. But the song talked about Hermínio. Cecilia has never forget him, and he has been having one downfall after another here on the earth. Although Cecilia are working hard trying to help him, she knows that she won't be to count on him for a long time. Smiley congratulates her and say that she didn't know that Cecilia had so much progress in divine art, playing music. To be devoted, uh, Smiley told to, to Cecilia, to be devoted is not a crime. Love is the light of God, even when it shines at the bottom of the abyss. So beautiful. Comments, guy?
Well, for
Go
Valentine's Day,
ahead.
almost here. Valentine's Day here in the US is February 14th. There you go. But
Yeah, for sure.
it's a joke. But I did want to say about that song. I YouTubed it and I listened to it a couple of times. It is intense. It like hits your spot like right here. Doo-doo-doo. I can't help but to move like,
Doo-doo-doo.
why am I moving like this? It's powerful.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
great misunderstood that he use these songs in move like that, because
You know,
it's a great open mind to receive. It's when you charge like that I told, when you stay in sustain the charge too many notes at the same time, it's clean every electromagnetic field, near. So a great sound healing technology. So chapter 32, Sublime Melody. Aniceto asks Smiley to play some music for higher spheres. André describes that everyone getting ecstasy. A rage of vibration had begun inside her heart, their hearts. And one more time, André was suddenly surprised because Smiley was not singing with the mouth. This sweet music was actually a music prayer that couldn't hear with his body ears, but fully feeling in his soul's through soft vibrations. Melody sounds were impregnated with the silence words. The words reach deeply our spirits, causing tears in emotion. We also wouldn't have enough time to repeat all the beautiful and divine lyrics here, but we invite everyone to read the book and play together with Smile. Andrea was so surprised as well, surprised, wondering that what kind of melody was this. Heard through mental sounds in the beautiful light from high downs on Smiley's head, warping her in a magnetic glow rainbow. Beautiful flowers came out of her heart, spread over all of us with a bluish mist dissolved when they touch lightly us. Andrea describes a new scientific possibility here. He felt actually an amazing integration among mind, melody, harmony, light, smell, sound, surrounding acoustically. Andrea was deeply impressed by those sublime sky blue fluidic flowers as they keep multiply around us, penetrating our hearts like petals made of sweet smell. André was having so amazing spiritual experience that he didn't know how to express what he felt. So beautiful so beautiful show. Let's comments, guy. Can I go? Chapter 33, en road to Earth, or just off to Earth. Next morning, they say goodbye to everyone and take the car. Andrea described the small car, but it had wings and worked by keeping the electrical fluids, the battery. And he said to advise that the car just be able to fly until noon. Then they will flow on foot, not vibration, until they have enough spirit vibration resistance. However, both will have it soon. This was not merely a promise, it's a law. Andrea described that the car was flying in the air little above the ground. At the stop point, they started walking, and the landscape became very cold, dark, and fog. Just another B movie. The atmosphere became heavy and hot breath. Shadows from low vibrations mental emissions of the incarnate humankind surround them. This area are full of dark residue from the heavy, bitter mental matter of the incarnates and disincarnates. The sunset show up, they start voltation. I asked Aniceto how they will find a way, and the answer, and he answers saying that they must educate their minds and find a way around by using field energy. Already here, Aniceto suggests going to see a side to take a long breath. Andre Andre begins to look around. The first time he had a look at the city as a spirit, and he reports people walking in a hurry, different, indifferent to his presence there, all with mental problems and material nature. Crowd brothers honking, and he also reports that the Great Guanabara was a full of renewed energy. Andrea and Vicente were exhausted. When the first city lights come on, and said, invite them, let's take a break. I will show the nosso lar also has some place on the planet space. Chapter chapter 34, workshop of nosso lar. Andrea was shocked one more time. Since the essential Since the essential of the magnetic help chamber in nosso lar to intensify their visual power, Andrea for the first time saw many disincarnates following behind the people on the street, attached and embraced them. Many were hanging from vehicles, others walking on the streets in a group, forming dark clouds. The number of disincarnates was more than incarnates. André felt fears in his soul as he watched
Bro, I don't know if you can hear us, but you stopped again. At least for me, you're frozen.
For me too.
Yes, like totally
moment.
frozen. I think it's raining a lot in Minas Gerais.
He'll
The internet connection gets a little unstable.
come back.
Okay, he'll come back. Let me just enter here to see if he says something. Um. Okay. While we wait for him, I think it's very, very interesting that we see those new senses in terms of technology in these books. In the book Memoirs of a Suicide, oh, he's here. Why am I saying? I just, I hadn't seen.
What's
Okay,
going on?
hi, bro.
Hey,
You're
what?
back.
Sorry, so
That's
sorry,
what
so
matters.
sorry.
You're back.
No, no, that's fine. Keep
Let's
on going.
go. We'll start chapter 34, okay? Uh, chapter 34, a nosso lar workshop of nosso lar. André was shocked one more time since the session of the magnetic help chamber to intensify the visual power in nosso lar. André, for the first time, saw many disincarnates following behind the people on the streets, attached and embraced them. Many were having many were hanging from the vehicles, or others walking on the street in groups forming dark clouds. The number of these incarnates was more the incarnates. André felt fears in his soul, and unpleasant inner disturbance inside his heart, and he had no idea where it was come from. Different vibrations, hard to breathe one more time. And Seto told them to keep a mental upbeat in order to keep a straight mental connection using sense that might comfort them the most. It would be impossible to help anyone with no mind control. Many fellow workers with spirits failed because of their mental state of fears. And Seto pointed to a poor teeny house illuminated by a beautiful spiritual bright light, which remind nosso lar environment, bring us a warm feeling comfort. That house in Rio suburb will be their shelter, a nosso lar workshop on earth. André was surprised one more time seeing many fellow workers spirits in the window, having them hi, and because it's door, the welcome gentleman opened the door to them. Closed doors were not a problem to Andre anymore. However, the house was the vibration security system force. Isidoro was a spirit as leadership of this physical and spiritual house. Explained that house belongs to all faithful workers involved to Christian service. The house was a common house on earth. Inside there are incarnates, a young girl of about 16, a boy around 12 years old, three older children of 9, 7, and 5 years old, and a woman about 40. Andrea tells us that the woman had a light that radiated from her face, heart, eyes, and hands. A good example for mediums to know how they are seen spiritually. And Seto says, this our sister Isabel. For the eyes of the incarnate, she is a Isadora widow. But for us, is a loyal work. Isabel is a great psychic clairvoyant, but the benefactor spirit's friend told us not to allow her mediumistic faculties a complete view of what happened around her. A full visual of the spirit environment around here might affect her peace of mind. So Isabel just can see a 20th of the all spiritual work around. Isadora and Isabel set up this home as workshop of Nosso Lar. They came from Nosso Lar for this enterprise 40 years ago. Both bravely overcome arduous work and kept the service on earth. Isadora returned to our sphere three years ago. However, because of his true spiritual love by Isabel, authorities of Nosso Lar allowed him to stay at the house in as faithful work. And Seto added that spiritual edification requires effort and dedication. As the ships need anchors in the port, we need selfless brothers and sisters who are anchors from the high spirit among humans. So beautiful. Finish the chapter. comments?
While you were
Just
not here, yeah, absent, I was talking about how amazing those technologies are in terms of new possibilities of senses. And I was saying that in the book Memoirs of a Suicide, we see a television through which we can see the image and sense the smell. It's very, very interesting. And we do believe that someday, soon or later, we're going to have that type of technology here on Earth.
yeah, for
As you
sure.
were talking about the senses while they were singing and they were sensing other things, this
Yeah,
amount of possibilities, these new possibilities. You can go ahead, dear.
yeah. You have to learn first of everything. Learn use our heart.
No.
Just
Yeah,
just it.
absolutely. And I think that leads us right next to the Donna Isabella, Donna Isabel, sorry, right? She is
Isabel.
all heart. Isabel, she's all heart, Chris. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
totally.
Yeah. So you want me to continue? Guys, I was
Yeah,
thinking as we this next chapters, I'm wondering if there's a difference. I know as a teacher, I read them like two, three times. I had to go back and like filter. I was like, okay, I'm sure everybody would read them differently. But I have to talk, I got a nice part being a female and given that perspective of Donna Isabel and her place. It's very interesting. So, chapters 35, 36, and 37, there's this like the God at home, right? The home worship. So, Andre goes into really huge detail about, what she did. And then the other two chapters, we will go into them later, but they talk about what happens while we're asleep. So hopefully we get to that. I'm going to go really quick. So again, they're all sitting doing a God at home. Key points here is that Donna Isabel asked her daughter to grab the inspirational material and even look up a newspaper article, right? And the topic was suicide. A young girl committed suicide. And so they're talking about, all of this, and before we even go into well, as this is happening, there's like this other behind the scenes happening. So um, Andre tells us that there's Fabio Aleto, and Fabio Aleto is almost like the one that's kind of inspiring, right? It says that he like puts his hand almost in this place, so we know that, you know, there's a lot of neuroscience teaching us about how the brain gets activated and all of that. And what was so interesting before we talk about this was that Fabio has one language, the spiritual language, right? And then Isabel, Donna Isabel, gets her understanding according to her level, and then she shares, and then the people who understand her to their level. And then Andre's team, they're getting it to where they're at, and I'm like, wow, this is like different languages here in one thing. Like that is incredible. Okay, um, but I think that the mom talking now, really looking at this, the mom letting the children choose the literature is very nice. This is where I have to come in and say, I'm trying not to be a teacher, but I can't help it. Since I'm not a mom, my heart says that is very powerful to have the kids choose what to read because it becomes more meaningful. But I also thought it was interesting that they talking about suicide, and the youth right now with the pandemic and everything. I mean, these are topics that we need to speak to the youth. And even at school, I mean, I get away a little bit with some stuff because I'm a reading teacher, and it's uncomfortable sometimes, but kids love this kind of talk, to address it to them. They have questions, so even though sometimes they might roll their eyes and, oh my gosh, they are paying attention. And I've had a case of a young girl who, because we talk about this kind of stuff, came and talked to us. And the young girl was actually going to commit suicide that day. She had taken a knife to school. And so one of my students knew, because we talk about this, there's that open communication. came and talked, and we took care of it, right? So kids know whom they can go to, and if we open this, so imagine parents. If I'm a teacher and we have this kind of communication, imagine you as a parent, the impact that you have. So I thought that was great that Donna Isabel didn't say, "Oh, let's that's not the kind of talk we have here on the table." Like she addressed it. Um, and so as they were reading, I couldn't help but to wonder if Andre, when he was telling us what they talked about, what Fabio was influencing, if it was word by word by human language or if it was what he picked up. I don't know, because if I was in this place talking to my kids, I don't know that I would talk about like in this language. But then again, that's just me wondering. But there are two things here that kids do understand, because some of the kids were young, which is talking about the ocean and the drops, and also they talked about the mustard seed. So if you plant the seed, right, it's gonna grow. And I think that simplicity, I mean, it could be a great talk or if you're young, and we can get so complex as adults. I mean, we can start talking. I was looking up like the diameters of the water and how much water, the drops and the weight. You can look at the mustard seed, like analyze, say, what does that mean? Why would Jesus use that? So that's great. The flexibility. I don't know if you guys want to say something, but I think that was that part. So just have those talks. And then it gets interesting because as they're talking, um, the conversation got intense, and we know that financially they're struggling, right? Because the husband Isadoro is no longer with them, so of course they're struggling, and the kids are actually asking, why are we this poor, right? And that's, again, that's a normal talk. Kids will ask these questions all the time. Why are this or that? And they're gonna want social media, constantly telling kids. And I loved, once again, that Donna Isabel addressed it. She acknowledged it, but she made it beautiful, right? She didn't say, "Oh, let's not talk about that." She goes, "Poverty is one of the best opportunities available for spiritual growth." So she was able to turn that around to a learning lesson, um, which she just continues talking. And of course, we know that the girls, they were understanding this, but the son was having a hard time because he was not at that level of evolution. But that was perfect, right? Because we a lot of us in our families too, we have that family member who might be a little bit more resistant, and we know that they're in the perfect family, and we can help them understand. I think Isabel as a mom did great because he didn't stop talking back. He says, "Well, in kindergarten, children will not agree with you that being poor is blah blah blah," right? In which we can translate that to current days, right? Kids hearing this all the time at school. I want to have the best stuff, and as a parent today, I can imagine it's a challenge, right? And this is what she says: "We're not in kindergarten here, my son. We are in the garden of our home, and it behooves us to know that even though the blossoms are always beautiful, life cannot move forward without the blessing of the fruit. So wherever we go in the world, we will receive news involving venomous size. We must watch our hearts from zeal and appreciate the blessings that Jesus sends us." So now her language changes a little bit, and we know that she had to get very firm with him because of that. And so it says here, "Since I love you all very much, I must point you in the right direction." And that to me is like, that's the point. Like I said, I can go in detail about, just because I work with kids all the time after the pandemic. I made a joke, I can grade parents because I know how they talk with their kids. And I think that as spiritist parents, addressing these issues, having this God at home, it's so beneficial. It really does help. These kids are thirsty to have an adult talk to them about these things, and they love when you're firm with them. I know it doesn't seem like that, but sometimes I'm like, have I been too hard on them? But they always come back and say hello, right? Because they know that there's that stability, that you're grounded, and they like that. Okay. So I love that. And so then They continue talking in the next chapter 37. What I loved is that after they finished, they got at home. Now they're having dinner, and Andre made it a point to say that they were the environment continued animated and joyful. The sensation of peace was impossible to describe. So having that meal with your kids, spending that time with them, right? It's priceless. They said that it was so nice for them to continue being there because of that. And I always see it's like you're nourishing your body and your soul at the same time, because when we nourish our bodies, the cells, they're alive, they're their own little universe, and all those biochemical processes that are going in there. So it's always good to do that, and I think teaching the children to do that is so important, right? So anyway, that was pretty much it. I think after that, I know that now Miss Isabel is gonna go to sleep. So we're low on time, so I'm gonna rush it. So now she's gonna go to sleep. Kids are put to bed, and now she's gonna go to sleep. So that was pretty much the session with the God at Home. I don't know if Jean or Chris would like to just kind of put a couple more thoughts on here before moving on to the other
I
chapters.
just think before we move on, it's very interesting to acknowledge that Allan Kardec, while making the codification, he brings us the information that at the highest point of planetary transition, we would see our kids and our teenagers committing suicide. So, bringing this topic, as Nora said, is a very, very important task for us to do as spiritists, because it's going to happen. And as we've seen, it's happening. Suicide is like another pandemic that we're not like watching over and not giving it as much thought as we should be giving. So, having this example of a mom talking so openly with her childrens about that is a huge lessons for those who have kids at home. I think it's very important.
Yes, nice. All right, Chris, we're good.
Yeah.
All
Go
right,
ahead.
so
Go ahead.
awesome. So now we're gonna kind of change gears, and then Andre Louis says, "Okay, now it's about working, right? But not like the physical work that we do, but it's like that work that happens at night." And so Isabel just takes off. The girl takes off. She's gonna go meet with Isadoro, which is beautiful because, I figured if you're in a relationship, your partner is on the other side and you're faithful, you will still meet. Okay, so that's a message of hope, I would think, right?
Yeah.
Or and stuff like that. And so,
So
but
beautiful.
it really is, right? Because when we think about love and what it is, and we've been learning, it's far more
The
than
true
that.
love.
Yes, and it's not like material, right? It's very different. And to see Isabel love her husband regardless of everything, it's right. So then we talk about another lady who comes and she's talking about, oh, we're getting help from like the post. They can say that, right? And so Andre's kind of talking to her, what's going on, and she's just saying that her a grandmother was praying for her granddaughter, and again the granddaughter or the grandchild wanted to commit suicide, and so she was desperate, desperate, and she got help. And so this is where the part comes in, because she got to talk to the grandchild and she gave her like advice, right? Slander, my child, is a serpent that threatens the heart. However, if we face it head on, strongly and peacefully, we will soon see the serpent has no life of its own. It's a toy viper and breaks like glass in our hands. And once the toy is conquered, instead of serpent, we'll have a flower of virtue. Don't be afraid, dear. Don't miss the sacred opportunity to testify your understanding of Jesus, right? So I love that because um, being young and talking about Jesus is very beautiful. It's a great thing to have faith. I feel like a lot of the youth, again, I'm going to say it just because I'm a teacher and I speak to them daily. It's not about the religion or anything, it's just having that faith. And when I could tell the difference of those kids that have parents or grandparents, whether asleep or not, that are having this kind of input daily, the way they speak, the way they confront. even their struggles within a classroom is it's visible that they're getting help versus others that need a little, it's different. So that was nice. Again, talking about suicide, to addresses with the youth at different levels. And they said that when she does wake up, she's going to feel refreshed. So she's not going to remember the exact dream, but she's going to sense something, right? She says here, she will awaken feeling encouraged and refreshed, but will be unable to identify the cause of her restored good spirits. She will say that she dreamt about her grandmother in a place where there were a lot of people, right? So it's almost like us too. Sometimes we have a recollection, but it might not be 100%. So just, but we have a feeling, I had a dream this week. It was really crazy. I was like, okay, it was so crazy, but I got like 2 3 points that made sense to me. So I think we've all experienced this. um and it says here, how much psychological wealth could be gained if researchers could move their focus of their study from physiological to the spiritual truth. So if there is a machine or something where instead of we can go and study those dreams and what people are dreaming, it would help so much, right? So that was nice. And then I think the last one, yes, the last one is the never ending work. So they're again at this place, and Andre talks about two folks and the names. Okay. Vieira and Ildegard, Ildegardo. Ildegardo? Okay. And so he's talking to them.
Delgado.
Ildegardo. Okay, thank you. And they're workers there at this post, and they kind of got in trouble. They got in trouble because they were trying to help one of their friends in one of like the prayer sessions, right? And they were not ready for that vibration. So instead of being part of the group to help, they wanted to kind of go and bother, perturb the mediumistic meeting to transmit a less uplifting message, right? And create like a disturbance. So it says here that luckily everybody else was kind of in a higher vibration. They were able to control the situation, but they nevertheless they were like, you have to be careful. It says here, no one is forbidden to help, to want the good, to intercede. We can all assist those we love with resources that are appropriate. But the word duty has a positive meaning for here for those who wish to walk sincerely toward God. So it's hard. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how, maybe you guys have a better picture of this, but I was like, how, what can I use this in a real life scenario? And I'm just thinking, sometimes it's a lot easier when it's like our family members, like we want to push for them, but it's to be reminded that we are a universal family. And those two spirits, Viera and Ildearnaldo, had to learn that lesson that we help everyone. Nobody's first. No, just because we're in the same bloodline, we're all the same. And so I think that work, it's not just for incarnates because everybody goes at nights, continue working. But I think that it's important to remember even discarnates that go to these posts at night, they're also growing in their own evolution. So we continue to work on that end. So that was kind of like the chapters there that he gave us.
Beautiful. I think that a very nice perspective that we should start exercising is that we are all in the same planet. When we think of this huge universe, as the Spirit book brings us, that of course all of the other worlds, they are inhabited, those orbs, they are inhabited. And when we think that the universe is so much bigger than Earth, we start seeing each other as a little more as brothers, because we are in the same boat, literally. We are here because we should be here, and if we're here together, there's a reason. We're not like randomly here, like just because Nora is in the United States and me and Chris we're here in Brazil, we would be like more connected or anything like that. And another interesting perspective is that as the planet goes to this dematerialization process, we do feel that we are more linked and connected to each other, no matter how distant those beloved friends are. And we need to acknowledge that as we see this dematerialization of the ways that we talk to each other through the internet happen on Earth, we are progressing, and we need to progress in when it comes to loving one another, when it comes to acknowledging that we are all brothers and sisters on this earth, and that we do need to help one another. We're here together, and that's a huge thing, and we need to think more about that. The universe is huge, and as Kardec told us, it would be foolish to think that we're the only planet inhabited, that we're the only, with this huge universe, God would have chosen only one small planet to fulfill with people and intelligent beings. It's a nice perspective. This book is amazing. Do you guys want to say something before we close the line?
No, just to we'll have to stop to materialize the technology of love. Love is a technology. You have not materialized it. You have to learn this techno because it's logic. Not fail. We can't fail with love. So love, it's a amazing technology that we have. You have to learn how to use it.
Yes, I love this perspective when Chris brought it while we were studying this book in Brazil. Love as this huge and powerful technology. This brings us much to think about. Do you want to say something, dear?
And just to add, and I love this aspect, these chapters, they have a lot of that human aspect for us to be comfortable being human, making those mistakes, because as Chris says, with love, we see all the at different levels that we saw, we cannot go wrong. All the characters that Andre brought, they all showed love and great intention, and they were able to overcome some of those dark moments. So absolutely beautiful.
So thank you guys for this night
Thank
of
you.
study. Next week we're gonna finish the book.
Thank you.
It's the fourth. Yes, the fourth part of the study. Yes, one
Oh my
more
God.
book finished. Yes, it's the last part of this book. I want to thank you guys that have been here with us till now. As we say, everybody that are here with us till the end, they are already gaining our bonuses from No Solar. This is a truly reality. Thank you guys so much. We're gonna close here, but this study will be
Thank
saved on
you.
Kardec. Thank you, bro. We're gonna end here, but the study will be saved on Kardec Radio's Facebook page and on Kardec Radio's YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much. See you next week. Bye bye.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.